Howdy, and welcome to the Aggie Teach Momentum podcast, brought to you by the Aggie Teach Arts and Sciences program at Texas A&M University. I am your host, Kenrick Davies, former high school physics and astronomy teacher and current program manager for Aggie Teach Arts and Sciences. This podcast is meant to provide a little more insight and information to those seeking a secondary content teacher certification in Texas. We aim to provide episodes that help pre-service educators on the path to certification, as well as leverage the experience of myself and other guest speakers to support teachers in their first few years in the classroom. Today's topic is using classroom technology effectively, and we have a guest in the studio with us today. Please welcome Miguel Guhlin, who is a director of professional development for TCEA. We'll talk about what TCEA is here in a second, but welcome to our studio.
Hey, Kenrick, thanks so much for having me, and it's a pleasure to be sharing ideas and information with your audience.
Yeah, thanks for joining. So to give a little context, TCEA is the Texas Computer Educator Association, but has grown beyond the borders of Texas, and so you kind of just go by TCA now. I know you're worldwide and provide a lot of resources.
That's right. TCA is, I like to think of really a member organization. We are focused on welcoming members from all over the world who are serving education or part of education. We offer 60 plus online courses, self-paced and everything. And it's just really fun to see people from Saudi Arabia or England or Australia, New Zealand, India, and in fact, we've had folks visit TCA headquarters in Austin, Texas, and come by and say, "Hey, I took a class from whatever, and I'm from India," and it's just amazing to make those connections through our blogs and podcasts. Lunch and learns and everything else that we put out there, and of course we do have face-to-face events as well throughout the year. But I think a lot of our reach is really online.
Yeah, and I think that really, just goes to show that this topic about classroom technology, computer education is not a local Texas thing. It's not a local America thing, right? I mean, it's just an educational thing, right? And we need to know how to use it effectively, how to use it efficiently, and all of that goes with that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what it was your pathway to or through education and how you ended up where you are now?
Yeah, so just to give you an idea, I was born in the Republic of Panama. In Panama, education systems and the infrastructure and roads and everything is not as well developed as in the United States. Of course, I came to the United States when I was 10 years old, but my mother was a classroom teacher in Panama. And she'd always tell me stories about how she had to walk long distances. And, it's sort of the I had to walk up a hill in the snow kind of thing.
Both ways, yeah.
But then I guess in 2008, I went back to Panama with my mom, and I had a chance to meet, and I was doing some podcasts with people. I was doing interviews, and I chatted with the local union, and they were talking about how they had to swim across rivers to get to their classrooms.
Wow.
And these were very much the same stories that my mom was telling me. And, I was just thinking, wow, the dedication it takes to be a classroom teacher in some places is a lot tougher. So, as a teacher here in San Antonio, Texas, my wife's a retired teacher now, but my path started in bilingual ESL because I'm a native Spanish speaker as well as English,
Mhm.
and I really started using technology because my dad bought me an Apple IIe when I was 13 years old, and against my mother's wishes. She said, "Why? He's not going to grow up to be a computer programmer. He's not very good at math," which unfortunately is true. And I can't do anything without a spreadsheet or AI tool now.
Right.
It was amazing how much the technology was able to empower me as a writer. I balanced my mom's checkbook and found mistakes where she had made mistakes, and she was a math teacher. And I was thinking, there's something here.
Yeah.
And so at a young age, I realized the value of technology and then started connecting on electronic bulletin boards in San Antonio. And so you can see how this really laid the groundwork for how to connect online with others around the world via the internet and um, bring my bilingual ESL students in urban school districts like Edgewood ISD and San Antonio ISD, as well as East Texas, Mount Pleasant, and sort of augment their voice and amplify their voice so that they could reach an audience and share their unique perspective with the world. The technology was a little bit different, but basically the idea behind using ed tech was still there. And I think this idea of using technology to amplify our connections with each other is really important where it's at.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I remember as an astronomy teacher, I mean, just the idea of being able to get connected with someone who is on the other side of the world and compare, what the sun did in the sky between Texas versus, someplace in China or someplace in Europe or even in the southern hemisphere in Australia. That was just something that was unheard of to be able to do that, 30 years ago. So to make your students have a more global view is certainly something that technology has provided us. And so, how did you end up with TCA?
So I guess when I guess my wife and I were working. She was working in Harlandale Independent School District in San Antonio, Texas, as a kindergarten teacher, and I was working as a middle school teacher. Uh, and then I became a campus instructional technologist. I knew how to acquire software to make beautiful graphs out of test data. Take that data and make a graph, a bar graph, or a
Yeah.
series of bar graphs, or pie graphs, or whatever. And that really made the difference for them. And then, so eventually they said, Miguel, you've got a lot of skills. We want you to become an instructional specialist for the campus, but we're going to give you a different title, and we're going to call it excuse me, a campus technology coordinator. And I was like, that sounds great to me. So there, you start down that road, and you need a community to be a part of.
Mhm.
Then I moved to East Texas because I got a job offer with a service center. I didn't go to the service center because the local school district said, we'll pay you more to come work for us than I was going to make at the service center.
Nice.
Uh, and so that was great. So I took the job, and I became, after a year, their district instructional technology specialist, or a DITS. And but at that time, I was really looking for ways to connect. So connected with the Texas Education Network, or Tenet.
Mhm.
Became a tenant master trainer for any older folks out there. They're all retired probably. And TCEA convention came along, and I remember presenting. One of my first presentations was, tenant, and explaining to teachers how they could connect their classrooms to the world, use via dial-up, modems and stuff like that. And we didn't even have modems in the classroom, but there were ways to make it happen. And I had
Right.
a room full of teachers that were dying to connect their classrooms, get their students talking to other students around the world. And that's how I got started with TCEA. And then, as when I guess my final post was director of technology operations. I wanted to be in charge of boxes and wires and instructional technology
Nice.
for a 10,000 student school district.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I remember having that sort of moment of clarity as we were moving towards a shift in superintendents. And I remember thinking, what is the job that I really enjoyed the most throughout my whole career? And it was working with people and writing blog entries about what I was learning and sharing it with others, doing workshops and presentations. And so TCA seemed a natural connection. So that's how I ended up at TCA.
That's great.
So,
Yeah, we always talk with our students here in the Aggie Teach program about finding your community and
mhm,
how educational associations can be that community. That's how I got started with the Science Teachers Association of Texas, which I know I've brought up on this podcast before. But uh, whenever I was a early career student, I would go to their conferences, CAS, the Conference for the Advancement of Science Teaching, and I got involved with them. And now I'm the past president for the organization. So
uh-huh.
it's a really cool thing to be involved in that community, whatever that community is, right? You find that community, and you can just take your career, you take your experiences to the next level, and It's just an awesome thing to experience. So since you have all of this experience with classroom technology and working with teachers and learning effective best practices in this, what are some of those effective ways that new teachers can integrate technology into their classroom, even if they're working on limited resources? Like you just brought up, you made a presentation and they didn't have the equipment, but they were still hungry for it. So what are the things that new teachers can do to help integrate that technology, even if they're have a smaller budget?
So I think that a lot of us as educators go through several different stages of ed tech adoption.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I'm not going to go through all of them now, but I'll share the link to the stages. But I think the first one is we learn about new technology. We're curious about it. We start telling other people about it because we're excited about what we're able to do with it, or what we imagine others could do with it if they only understood how to use it.
Mhm.
And then from there we just start working and bringing that in. But as a classroom teacher, especially one that's just starting out, is that you really need to be thinking about how you can design um, learning experiences for students that are engaging and that are going to lead to long-term information retention,
Mhm.
getting students to be able to remember things, remember what they're learning for the long term. It's also about critical thinking. So blending in critical thinking processes, whether it's the SIFT approach or any of the other million ones that are out there, whatever that process is, you want to make sure that you make a routine out of it. And I
Mhm.
think that one of the things that escapes us as young teachers is, or as teachers starting out, is establishing routines. It's hard to establish routines because everything is new and we're not sure what steps to take. So I would take a hard look at the lesson and adopt 1 to 3 strategies that I can use. And this is where John Hattie's work really sort of fits in. He talks about surface, deep, and transfer learning. And
Mhm.
surface learning is this idea that you're introducing new ideas, new skills to students. And there are specific strategies that are evidence based, that have research behind them, based on the best that we can do and know at this time,
Mhm.
that are useful at that phase of learning. So I want to be able to assess where students are at. What phase of learning are they in? Are they past surface learning? Maybe they're ready to start making connections between ideas, and or maybe they're ready to start applying what they've learned to new situations. That's transfer learning. And what strategies could I use for that? I would just pick maybe 3 strategies to get comfortable with. One for surface learning, maybe even one for deep learning. The jigsaw approach, the 3-step jigsaw approach is useful there.
Mhm.
And then for transfer learning, maybe problem-based teaching. That's one that you may be more familiar with as
Mhm.
problem-based learning or project-based learning, if
Project.
we
Yep.
if you use all those terms interchangeably.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
PBLs. Certainly did a few PBLs in my career. They're certainly fun and they can be highly engaging with students. And
I agree. I think that's the key. But it's also about making sure that you have that foundation knowledge
Mhm.
built up. And I remember when I first started using PBL, I went through Dr. Bill Stepien, Hoekstra. I forgot the name of the folks. Now I feel really
Mhm.
bad here, but
That's okay.
um, it was like, wow, this completely shifted my perspective. But PBL is only one strategy,
Right.
and we need to find the strategies that are right for the phase of learning. So if you're using transfer learning strategies for everything, you're missing out on building that foundation. And I had no understanding of that as a young teacher. Nobody had ever talked to me about that, and we know better. I mean, this didn't come out until much as it 2009, and then so it's shifting that perspective. So I would learn 2 or 3 instructional strategies and make them so routine that your kids just throw their hands up and say, "Oh, we know how to do this already." and then
Yeah.
it's not an issue. And then blend technology in as a part of that. I also have another idea for that I have to throw out there, Kenrick.
Okay.
It's something a lot of us learn about the Bloom's taxonomy.
Yep.
And but there's another taxonomy that we can use that matches right up to surface, deep, and transfer learning, and it's called the solo taxonomy. And
Right.
I don't want to get too deep into that, but if you understand the solo taxonomy and how it connects to surface, deep, and transfer learning, then it doesn't matter what technology you have access to. You'll know when it's appropriate to bring that technology uh, into the equation, or mix it in.
Hmm.
Because if you mix technology in at the wrong time, then you are distracting from the learning that's possible. So if I'm using technology at a surface learning, or maybe even before we start introducing new ideas, what we could use technology for there is to assess student learning. And think about other instructional strategies like retrieval practice or practice testing, where you're assessing student learning, um, and you want to do it in a quick, engaging way. So you might say, "Hey, I'm going to use Kahoot or Know It, or maybe I have um, a quizzes, or there are so many, or
There's so
CurryPod,
many.
or
Yeah.
there's so
Plickers. I
many.
used I used Plickers in the classroom. Like that was always fun.
Yeah, yeah. So all of those choices are available to you. It, well, all of those choices are theoretically available to you, but your school district may only pay for one or two of those. And you may have a preference as well. So, but you have to know when to use it, and being aware of the surface, deep, and transfer learning and the solo taxonomy and the different levels, that's pretty key. And so that, I think, is probably where we start getting into adopting and experimenting with different technologies to find out, what can I use well with this? So I would set clear learning objectives before integrating any tech. I'd get feedback from the students on their experiences with tech. I think about using checklists and rubrics, because, we do much better when we have a checklist, right?
Right.
Um, and then monitor student progress, how well the technology fits. And want you to know
Mhm.
they're all going to go away. Everything is going to disappear.
Right.
But what's not going to change is the instructional strategies that you use, like retrieval practice, or the jigsaw approach, or argumentation, which is like classroom discussion in your classroom to really dig deep into a topic, or reciprocal teaching, or transfer learning, or service learning. All of those are different strategies, and those remain.
Hmm.
So I would focus my efforts as a new teacher on learning the strategies and then blending in whatever tech happens to be available in your situation.
Yeah. So I mean, this discussion is kind of hit on a couple of other questions that I had for you, and let's take this one first. What are some common mistakes that you see, like new teachers or just teachers in general, making when they're trying to integrate technology? You've already kind of hinted on a couple of them, or brought a couple of them up, like using technology at the wrong time, or are becoming dependent on one type of technology when it's going to shift eventually. What are some other of those common mistakes that you see teachers making?
Well, if the tech isn't amplifying the instructional strategy that you're the evidence-based instructional strategy that you're using,
Mhm.
you don't need it. Throw it out. It's not worth it. Now, as an ed tech advocate, many, many years ago, I would have started with the technology tool because I thought that was going to have the most bang for your buck. But now I realize that if the tech isn't deepening understanding, it's just extra stuff.
Fluff, yeah.
Yeah. And the lesson that, it's a hard lesson to learn, but students will learn the technology, not what you're trying to teach them or
Right.
what you want them to get. So
Mhm.
the technology, or whatever it is, gets in the way of the actual purpose of the lesson. So what's that saying? Don't let the tail wag the dog. That's essentially what we're working
Yeah.
with.
Okay,
And
so
this is
essentially, you don't start with the tool and find the problem. You start with the problem and then find the tool. Is that essentially what you're saying?
definitely, I mean, think about the latest ed tech craze, which again is being pushed by big technology and companies that want to make money off of schools. AI. So if you use AI at the wrong stage of the solo taxonomy, uh, you're preventing students from building the capacity, the thinking, and doing the work that they need to be successful at transfer learning, because the goal is to move students beyond surface learning to deep learning to transfer learning, right? I mean, that's where we all want to be. We want to be able to apply what we've learned. And so any technology that gets in the way of that is a problem.
Right.
And so we shouldn't use it until we're ready to. Well, students shouldn't use it until they're ready, until we say, okay, now I know that you really understand this process inside and out, and you're ready to apply it. Now we can use these tools for rapid prototyping
Mhm.
and create the solution quickly, and then fail faster, and then move on to the next one. So that's, to me, that's the piece. Also, students have to be involved hands-on, and they have to be working on this. It's like, for many years I wrote all my notes on computer or a device or whatever, and I thought I was being super efficient. But what I noticed is that I had trouble remembering what I was typing up.
Mhm.
In other words, I could sit and listen and live blog something, and people would say, "Wow, that was amazing, Miguel. How did you live blog that whole, event?" And then I would like, but I don't remember any of it.
Yeah.
And so
In
now I've switched my perspective back to handwriting. Gone back to the approach I used when I was 19, and I'm handwriting everything. And my gosh, I remember so much more of that.
Yeah, I did the
So
same thing in college. I had to write everything, otherwise I was not going to remember anything.
yeah, yeah. And that's part of the human. I mean, that's also goes back to this idea of how our brains work. And that's not going to change, anytime soon.
Mhm.
We are still having to learn things the hard way. There's no shortcuts. But there we can take advantage of the technology tools that we have once we've um, taken the long path.
Yeah. So you brought up AI, right? So AI tools like ChatGPT or Bard or any of the other ones, they're becoming really common in education. I think on both sides, right? Teachers using them, students using it. So what are some practical ways that pre-service or our early career teachers can responsibly integrate AI to support that student learning without dismantling or diminishing that critical thinking or creativity aspect of it?
Yeah, so I I really see, I mean, I love to use AI, okay? And one of the things that people tell me or have told me for many years is like, "Wow, Miguel, you write really fast." And yeah, I can write really fast. I can put ideas together and all of that. But so where does AI sort of fit into all of this? So I'm going to come back to the solo taxonomy because I think a lot of people get caught up in the AI is cheating. AI is we either should use AI or we shouldn't use AI, or we
Mhm.
should use it only at these grade levels but not at these other grade levels.
Yeah.
And I think that those conversations miss the point. When we think about the solo taxonomy, you think about a student walking into your classroom who may or may not have any prior knowledge. They don't have any facts about the
Mhm.
situation.
Right.
Or they have the wrong idea about what's going on.
Right.
They might have facts about one or two facts, but they don't know how those fit together. Um, and then they definitely don't know how to um, reconcile what seem to be facts that are maybe contradictory. But solo taxonomy, you start out with prior knowledge. That's your phase of learning. And as a teacher, I can take advantage of AI tools for retrieval practice. This is where we're assessing prior knowledge. Um, we're generating excitement. We're, doing a collaborative quiz or something.
Mhm.
Then we move to surface learning. This is where students have a limited understanding, but they don't know how to apply that understanding or how it connects to other ideas. And so we can use basic AI prompts, the teachers can, to develop entry and exit tickets and other activities and use it in lesson planning.
Mhm.
Notice that the AI use is not by the students, it's by the teacher.
Right.
And so then We move into multi-structural. This is where students have a basic understanding, but they're still not sure how the ideas fit together. And this is where we can, again, create AI summarized resources,
Mhm.
maybe organized by reading level. We can introduce students to tools like SIFT or critical thinking frameworks as they're processing AI generated content that we have put together as the teacher, as the content expert.
Right.
Then we move into relational, the solo taxonomy, where the students are starting to understand how ideas fit together, and they need, I guess, a little bit of support on how to be successful. And so in this deep learning, we can use AI as a brainstorming tool to evaluate student efforts, to connect ideas. And so I just think about the different dimensions of science, you know, getting students to talk about what they see happening in nature, um, and then asking, hey, uh, AI, this is what I saw. What do you think about this?
Mhm.
But we still want kids to develop that connection. We want them to do that thinking and to develop the questions that are interesting to them. Um, and so through that process, they're moving through surface learning to deep learning, and then eventually they get to transfer learning. Can I take what I've learned and make something new?
Mhm.
So can they've come up with a hypothesis of or predictions, and then they test that, and we can use AI as a part of that as a thought partner and say, hey, this is what I observed. This is my hypothesis. This is what actually happened.
Right.
Could What do you think? How could we come up with maybe a general theory or a new hypothesis to explain this? And what should I see in different situations that might be beyond the bounds of the classroom?
Right.
And so those are just some ideas for thinking about how AI, but I think we can boil it down to, if AI is doing the thinking, then you're probably doing it wrong. It's not working
Right.
that.
Yeah. So I can certainly see how essentially what you've described is almost like a gradual release of AI to the students, right? It's on the teacher side of developing content or curating material, not really developing content, but curating material and finding ways to access students where they are, on the front end. And as the students learn more and more, then they are guided towards using AI as a tool to accentuate or enhance their learning. Is that essentially kind of that process?
Yeah, I think you nailed it.
Okay, so we're kind of at the end of our time here. So with our discussion around technology use in the classroom, AI use in the classroom, what advice do you have for balancing technology use with also maintaining an authentic kind of face to face with students? I know we're living in a post COVID technology driven sort of world. We have Zoom meetings and computer work that diminishes that face to face experience. So, what advice do we have to try to make that balance happen? Use tech when it's appropriate, but still maintain that face-to-face connection with students.
So I have a an acronym that I use, that I introduce people to. It's ALDO, ALDO, or Amazing Lesson Design Outline.
Okay.
And the Amazing Lesson Design Outline really starts with number one. It's building relationships first. Build trust and safety, because if you don't have that, everything that you do after is not going to count. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter how great the instructional strategy or the technology. If you don't have trust and safety, you'll have kids ripping apart the tech and destroying thousands of dollars worth of equipment,
Yeah.
uh, or completely ignoring you. So it has to be about those relationships first. It's not about the excitement of the tool. Next, find out what phase of learning your students are in. Pre-assess those students. You can use low stakes assessments that are paper based, or you can use technology, but you need to do that. You need to find out what phase of learning they're in. Are they in surface, deep, or transfer learning about whatever it is that you're planning or hoping to teach, whatever your learning intention is?
Mhm.
Then select a teaching and learning strategy that matches the phase of learning those students are in, and ask yourself, does technology really make a difference here? or is it just something I'm using because I'm supposed to use it or because of whatever?
Right.
Because the truth is, the technology isn't the most important thing. It's those relationships first. And then post-assess students, make sure that you assess where they're at, what they've learned, ask, give them feedback so they can close the gap between where they're at and where they need to be. And then also become self-regulated learners so that they can take ownership for their own learning, and learn to move forward and get a little metacognitive about what they're learning.
Right.
And then reflect and share, encourage reflection for them and for you, and try to just close that gap between where we are individually and as a class and where we wanted to be, where we need to be. So all of that is, those are just the ideas, and there are different technology tools that will take advantage of the different strategies that you might have.
Mhm.
So I actually have a chart that I share with people, um, and a formula for that. So you've got to consider brain-based learning. You've got to consider where students are coming from, their schema, what's this, what some people call culturally responsive teaching,
Mhm.
is really about thinking deep about where kids are coming from and connecting to that. And then high effect size instructional strategies, and picking the right strategies that match the phase of learning, and then the technology tools, making sure that technology is going to amplify the impact or deepen the impact of the strategies that you're using rather than just be a distraction or a fun engagement.
Got
And
it.
then you have to do those formative assessments to gauge where students, those checks for understanding, so to speak.
Well, that's great. I think that's some real great advice, so that teachers, these new teachers that are coming into the field now, don't fall into those mistakes, those pitfalls that we have with just throwing technology at students and hoping for the best. So appreciate your time. So if listeners want to learn more from you, where can they find you online, or TCA? Where can they get more information?
So, I mean, they can find all of the TCA resources, including blog entries that I've written, as well as my colleagues, at blog.tca.org, blog.tcea.org. If you want to see all of the stuff that I'm writing about, which is broader than just education, although it certainly includes all of that, is you can go to mglink.org, mglink.org, and you'll be able to find all my latest thinking. There's so many exciting tools that we have access to, so you could spend your lifetime exploring those. But I think where it's really at for teachers is getting to know new strategies. So I try to learn new strategies, but I'm certainly not an expert on everything. But it's so much fun to take the big picture approach and uh, share how I think things connect,
Right.
instruction to technology and assessment. So,
And that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you, Miguel, for being a guest today. The Aggie Teach Momentum podcast drops every 2 weeks. So make sure that you are looking for the next episode on Spotify or linked on the Aggie Teach Arts and Sciences website. For more information, you can visit our program website at aggieteachartsci.tamu.edu. That is aggieteach, ARTSCI.tamu.edu. Thanks and gig 'em.